Hello Bitzbox, this is Craig from Bitzbox.co.uk here, and in this video I'm going to be kitbashing a couple of Dark Elder or Drukhari characters. I'm going to be doing an Archon and a Succubus, and the base miniatures for these are expensive miniatures, but they're miniatures I really like, and I'm glad I'm finding a use for them. And yeah, I've been really bitten by the Drukhari bug at the moment, so you may have seen the little painting video I done on them earlier. And now I'm doing a little kit bashing video. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. So let's hit the desk. Okay, so this is what we'll be using for the base of a miniature, Karlina von Karstein. And yeah, I've seen a couple of people do this before, and yeah, some of the Soul White Gravelord stuff is really nice. So I've got the front and the back here. So I've just glued on a few bits, but we do need to lose this arm. So I'm just going to carefully chop that away. Like so. That will leave us a little bit which we can clean up later on. And then the cloak should just fit on the back as normal. So for the sword, I'm going to take one from the Dark Elder or Drukhari Archon set. So I am using that for a few bits in this build. And I've just going to file down this bit of arm here. I did try to clip it, but I only need a little bit off, so I couldn't really get the clippers to take a tiny bit off. So I'm just filing that like so. And then that will fit in the little gap there. So that's how it's looking. And I'm going to take this other arm from the Archon and I'm going to stick that in there. That should go in quite nicely with no sort of sanding or anything required. So I decided I didn't actually like the look of the left arm, so I'm going to take the actual sword from Karlina von Karstein, or at least take the arm, and I'll chop the sword blade off and replace it with the Drukhari sword, like so. And that should go on there pretty easily, hopefully. So I'm just going to take my knife, nice sharp blade on here, and that'll get us a bit of a cleaner cut, so that'll take the sword blade off there, and then I can put the Drukhari one on like so, and I think that is a much better pose than what we had before. So next I'm going to put on the head, and I've got this one from the Hand of the Archon set. I don't really like the helmeted head from the actual Drukhari Archon. I've got this little Fantic rotary tool here that I'm just going to use to get this little nubbin bit out of the neck joint. It just seemed a bit difficult to get a knife in there, and certainly couldn't get a file in there. So I thought I'll give this a whirl. I've started using it a bit more recently, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So to get the head to fit, I do have to just clip some of these spikes just down flat, which is not ideal. Not ideal at all, but I just really want to use this helmeted head. As I say, I don't really like the one from the Archon, so this will help get it in and get the hair to fit. And to be honest, with a finished miniature, you don't really notice that these spikes are flat at the top. So just going back in with this tool again, I just want to make a little groove on the back. This is so I can put in one of them sort of back pieces that a lot of the sort of Archons and Cybrites and stuff have. And there it is. This one is actually from the Cavalite Warriors, I believe. And the one in the actual Archon kit is just really big, and I just didn't want it to go too much above the head. And he is quite a tall miniature already. So, just taking the Archon sprue, I'm just going to clip these little bits off, and I want to take the chain that's hanging between these, just to give him another sort of Drukhari style feature. So I'm just going to carefully try and cut away at these. And it'll just be a case of taking the clippers and just cutting around them. I don't really want to keep anything intact here apart from the chains, so I'm not too fussed about these little sort of hip guards. And with them neatened up, I can put them in place. Now they will need bending around a little bit. You can see I've bent them a little bit, but I do end up bending them just a little bit more, just so they really wrap around his waist. Or her waist, I should say. I'm going to take this little accessory piece from, I believe this one is from the Hellions. So Hellions or the Scourgers. It might be the Scourgers, actually. It doesn't really matter. any sort of little bit of pouches and grenades and such from Drukhari will work quite well. That just fills in that little gap there. So just putting in a little bit of glue and then taking my tweezers, and they can sit nicely in that little gap there. And here he is. So eagle-eyed viewers may notice he's on a 40mm base rather than the 32 that the Archon's meant to be on. I just didn't think he looked right on the 32. And, you know, I don't game really, so it's not going to make much difference. He's just going to look cool as part of the army. But yeah, I'm really happy with how he turned out, and I can't wait to paint him up. So let's move on to the Succubus. Alright, so we are taking Krafusa, the Crones here, say Krafusa, and this is a miniature I absolutely love, but I don't have my Daughters of Cain army anymore. So yeah, I'm sure I could find some use for these wings for something else, but I'm going to start by doing the base. So we're going to cut away some of this base and just be left with this sort of central pillar thing. I want to put her on a 32mm base. I certainly don't want to go on the 60mm base that Krafusa was on, and I don't want to go as big as the 40mm for the Archon. As I don't really game with these, it doesn't really matter what size base they're on, but we're going to make it work on this smaller base. Especially if anyone wants to do a similar kitbash and they want to use a proper base size, which I'm not even sure if it is 32 at the moment for the Succubus, but it is for the Archon, and no doubt it'll probably change for the Succubus. I do think a lot of Dark Elder miniatures are on two smaller bases. So that's going to go on like so, but that will leave us a bit of a gap. So I am going to cut away a little bit of the rock off the main part, which I have right here. And you see sort of where it attaches onto a rock. So we're going to cut round and we're going to take this rock. I'll probably still be left with some gaps, which I can then fill with green stuff after. So yeah, I'm going to carefully cut around this. Now, yeah, I don't know if I lost a bit of footage on here, because we're going to quickly just, in a moment, I think we're going to go to when this is glued onto the base, and then some of Krafusa, I also didn't film getting glued together, but it's just like some main parts of her. So I got all the kitbash and stuff. But yeah, here it is on the base, as if by magic, and I put some green stuff around. Now the green stuff work is really, really shoddy, because that's all going to get covered up with model and sand and whatnot later on. It's just to close up them little gaps. And yeah, as I said, I've made some of her here and glued her onto the base. This is all just normal steps until we decide to snip off this big icon here. We don't need that. Also, I find this is way too long, so I'm going to attempt to take the end off, cut out a bit of the middle, and then put the end back on, because a lot of the folds in the robe seem very straight, so in theory it should work. And then just a little bit of green stuff. I know my green stuff leaves a lot to be desired, but I think I can make it work. So I'm going to chop it about here. I just don't like how it was hanging right down to the base, that just looked a bit odd for me. So yeah, here it is, glued back in place with some green stuff in the middle. Now I know my green stuff work always leaves a little bit to be desired, but it's not too bad. I did do a lot back and forth trying to smooth it out, and hopefully when there's paint on there it won't be too noticeable. So I'm taking this whip hand from the Archon, which I'm bending just ever so slightly so it arcs around her body a little bit more. And this hand fits just perfectly onto this miniature. So if you want to put one of the left hands from the Archon onto this miniature, it works really well. As long as you cut her left hand off at a similar angle, it will fit on there really, really well. So just very carefully, I'm just going to cut around, chop the fingers off essentially, and then just take a little bit more. And then, yeah, once that's neatened up, that hand will fit on there really, really nicely. And there it is, all glued on. And yeah, I really like how it sort of arcs around her body. So I got this little blade, and this is from one of the Header Knights of Slaanesh. I think it's the Bitzbox Seekers. I had some of these left over from when I done the Spearhead. there's a video on that if Slaanesh is your thing. I was going to use the power sword from the Archon, but I just thought it's just way too big, and this just, I don't know, the size of this just looks really nice, and a lot of the sort of Slaanesh stuff works really well with Drukhari. So as for the head, I'm thinking of replacing the face with a face from the witch leader. I can't think what she's called, is it Hecatrix or something? So I'm going to take her neck off and very carefully just going to take the back of her head off like so, and then a little bit of neaten up, and that should hopefully go on. It does look a little bit too large. If I actually put it on the right side, it's slightly, ever so slightly larger than Krafusa's original head, but not by a lot at all. And yeah, once it's on, it looks something like this. So yeah, I think it might just be a tiny bit too big, but I think it does work still. You have to let me know what you think. But yeah, it is her original head, and it does sort of line up a little bit. And we do need to carefully just take the front of this piece for her hair, like the thing that holds her hair up. And as you see there, it did ping off, but I did find it, so that's all good. And once that's glued in, I'm going to put a back piece on, just as we did with the Archon. And I didn't show on camera, but I did sort of green stuff for holes in her back, because she had some holes for where the wings meant to go. So they've been green stuffed as well. However, I did find that this piece is just going into her hair. And I don't know, there's something about it I just don't like. So again, I'm going to scrap something on this video, as I did with the Archon's arm. And we'll just go for something more subtle, like some chains. And she definitely needs something in her back, because where the wings go, the sort of straps are not sculpted. So she just has like some straps that just stop suddenly. So you do really need to put something there to cover that up, or green stuff in some straps if you want to. But I'm going to take these chains, and these are from something in the Emperor's Children range, I think, because they're in my Emperor's Children spares. But I couldn't tell you what set. So yeah, we'll stick them on. And with that, I think she's done. And I really like this one. Obviously the base miniature of Karufa is just so cool. It's just such a brilliant miniature. And yeah, I think it works quite well for a succubus. Again, yeah, maybe the head is just slightly large. Like if it's just a fraction, like a millimetre smaller, I think I'll be a bit happier, but I think it works. And with little things like that, once it's painted, it might be less noticeable. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this one turned out. And I really like the Archon as well. As I said, I've seen a few people use this miniature as a base for an Archon, and it works really well. Even though it's like fairly large, but I just like having leaders on the battlefield that just stand head and shoulders above everyone else. I think that's how they should be. And yeah, it's really cool. So I'm very happy with both of these, and I hope you guys like them as well. If you have, then do feel free to give this video a like, and you can subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. I'll definitely want to do more kitbashing on here, as that is sort of our forte, all bits and kitbashing and stuff. So I'll have to come up with some more ideas, or if you have any ideas that you'd like to see me attempt, then obviously do let me know in the comments. All that's left to say is thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all again in the next video.